Welcome to At Issue. My name is H. Wayne Wilson, and I'm very pleased to have two very distinguished gentlemen with me today. I say they're distinguished because of what they've done for Central Illinois, and it's not to be taken lightly. Combined, the Illinois House is losing 52 years of reasoned experience because of the retirement of these two gentlemen. Let me introduce to you first David Leach. David, thank you for being on the program.
Oh, thanks so much.
David is the representative for the 73rd District. He is from Peoria, and he has been in the House for 28 years. He is the senior Republican in the House of Representatives. Not far behind him in length of service, with 24 years, the second senior Republican in the Illinois House is Don Moffitt. Don represents the Greater Galesburg area, the 74th District. Those two districts are adjacent to one another, but you represent Knoxville, Galesburg, and don't forget Gilson.
That's right, and some other counties too.
Just for a little bit of background, Don, just real briefly, you came up from Oneida through the ranks, more or less. You started with local government before you got to Springfield.
Right, I started out in local government as an alderman on the city council in Oneida, and then mayor, smallest city in the state of Illinois, by the way. Then was on the Knoxville City Council. We moved down to Knoxville, and then on the Knox County Board, and then was chair of the board, and then Knox County Treasurer, elected 3 times, and then elected to the Illinois House.
1993.
Elected in 92, took office in 93. Right, exactly.
And David, 28 years in the House, but you have 1 year in the Senate. I remember when Prescott Bloom died in that house fire.
Right.
You were appointed to that position, and then you sat out a year?
Well, yeah, I lost the primary against Carl Hawkinson. And so when Fred Turk retired, I took his seat.
Fred Turk being a representative from Peoria.
Republican.
And, but your background wasn't in, well, it was a little bit in government.
Well, I'd run a lot of campaigns, worked closely with Mayor Carver, had done a number of things in the political realm, but fundamentally I had first been a newspaper reporter and had gone to Springfield with the famous Bill O'Connell, who schooled me in the arts of Springfield, and then became director of the Downtown Development Council when we worked with the city, Mayor Carver, David Conner, the downtown business community to implement the downtown Peoria plan that included the Civic Center and the restoration of Paramarquette and so forth. So then I worked at the commercial bank and subsequently now PNC Bank for about 26 years, and then all the while in Springfield.
Let's talk about some of the successes in Springfield. We're going to talk about the disappointments in just a moment, but let's talk about some of those successes. Don, I want to turn to you first, and you come from Gilson. It's a rural community.
Right.
You were in Oneida, very rural. So, and you have your heart really on first responders. And so one of the big bills that you passed was this zero interest loan to buy fire trucks for rural communities to buy fire trucks.
Right, and of course you benefit the entire community when you improve public safety with fire, EMS, law enforcement. But the cost of fire equipment, these big trucks, pumper tankers, is getting, of course, increasing all the time, becoming more difficult for rural fire departments to be able to purchase those. Representative Mike Smith and I co-chaired a task force on fire protection. And one of the things they ask for time and again, we need help in being able to buy equipment. So we created the interest-free revolving loan fund to buy fire trucks. And that's really been a huge success. It's been in place now 13 years. We've helped over 180 fire departments get new trucks with that interest-free loan, loaned out over $35 million. And there is no general fund money. And we talk about the budget problem of the state, but it's not general fund money in that loan fund. Each year when principal is paid back, that money is available to loan out again, so it just keeps recycling, and no defaults. So it's a program, it's self-help, it's not a giveaway, but helped 180, and it's the kind of thing that it's really helped improve public safety across the state of Illinois.
But you decided that that was successful, so you needed to go out with, to fight the brush fires. You had another bill that you
There's
introduced.
another, some more legislation, and it was later than the interest-free revolving loan for the big fire trucks. It's called the brush truck loan. And I've always wanted to incentivize buying Illinois products, and so that the 2% brush truck loan, and brush trucks are more of the rural departments. It's usually a 3/4 or probably more often than not a 1-ton truck. Get 2 firefighters on the scene quickly, and usually 4-wheel drive, so if they need to get off-road out into a field or something, you can get there quickly. It's a 2% loan. However, if the truck that they purchase is final assembly point was Illinois, you take 1% off. And if the apparatus was purchased and installed in Illinois for the fire equipment, you take 1% off. So it incentivized buying an Illinois truck. So it can be interest-free if the truck was made in Illinois and the equipment purchased and installed in Illinois.
We know a lot of those are made up in, I think it's in Appleton, Wisconsin. Pierce is based up there. So.
And there's also Lexus fire equipment in Illinois, over in Warren County.
Let's stay on the issue of first responders. EMS has been close to your heart also.
It has, and we just wanted to make it practical and an improved response. And one of the bills, and Representative Leach was always, almost always, I think, a co-sponsor on any of these bills. One that we did more recently, it actually was signed in I think 2014. It's called an infield upgrade, and this is for volunteer ambulance service. And if you have volunteers who are higher level than EMT basic, your ambulance service is called EMT basic, but you have a paramedic, you might have a nurse, or higher level, advanced degree nurse. If they're volunteers, we wanted to be able to allow them to practice at the level of their licensure if their local board wanted that, and most of them do. And that was the initial effort on that was brought to us by the Joy Fire Department. And in Mercer County, they have a countywide ambulance service, and all those people are paramedics. And 2 of the paramedics at the time were also volunteer firefighters for Joy Fire Department. So they would go to a call on the fire department, at night or when off-duty day. It could only use first responder skills because that's what the fire department was. Once the ambulance got there, they could use paramedic skills. That made no sense whatsoever. Get the best possible level, highest level of care that you can as fast as you can. That was signed at the State Fair on Ag Day.
And we're going to talk about Ag Day in just a minute
Okay.
because Representative Moffitt has been very involved in agriculture and will continue to be. We'll talk about that. But let's continue along this health issue because, David, you've been, as I looked back at your history, health issues seem to be at the forefront every time I turn the page. I don't know where to start, but let's start with stem cell research.
Well, in 2002, I guess it was, I passed the first umbilical cord blood stem cell bill in the United States. The stem cells come from the placenta and the afterbirth of a mother, and they're nature's richest source of stem cells. They're not controversial because they're not embryonic, and they had just phenomenal potential to supplement or replace bone marrow transplants because they're a lot more flexible and much easier to use. They have less rejection rates. They're much cheaper. So it's a real opportunity for the country, and I'd hope to be able to have a major research center here in addition to having passed the legislation. Right now, all the major research, what I would have hoped would have been happening here, is by Dr. Joanne Kurtzberger, who was at Duke University. And anyway, it was a delight to pass the bill, a disappointment not to have it in Peoria.
Earlier than that, in fact, it might have been in your first year, you introduced some
The
legislation.
mammography bill, yeah,
Right.
It's kind of hard to believe that insurance companies didn't cover mammograms till 1990. And that was a bill that I first passed and was very proud to do so because, of course, I was very active with the Komen Foundation. I was acquainted with Susie Komen, and we were all very focused on the issue here in Peoria. So nevertheless, it was a major achievement to pass that bill.
One other health-related issue, if you look at mental health. In fact, before we talk about what you did, what is the state of mental health service in the state of Illinois?
Worse in the United States. Again, that's one of my great disappointments in leaving, is I don't believe we've ever been successful in rationalizing the mental health system. My version of mental health care starts with NAMI, the National Alliance of Mentally Ill. Those are the families and people who actually have loved ones with mental illness. So what we've done here in Peoria for the last 15 or 16 years is try and build a system here that focuses on the people who are, and the families who actually have the mental health issues, and build up. The state and federal programs are nonsensical in many times and contradictory far too often, because they're designed by academics and people remote from the actual care of mentally health people. Some probably have never seen a decompensating person in their life, yet are in charge of these very discombobulated, contradictory programs that are of dubious effect. I'll give you a quick example. The last budget in Illinois did not even include psychiatric services in the mental health budget. That's how ridiculous mental health services have been in Illinois throughout my career.
You mentioned psychiatric services.
Yeah.
We do have the University of Illinois College of Medicine in association with Methodist.
Right. Dr. Ryan Finkenbein is the head of that area. We wanted to get a school of psychiatry here because that would hopefully have psychiatrists who would stick around and help build our community base for mental health services. About 15 years ago, with the advent of ICC North replacing Zeller, I've been convening most Monday mornings the community-based providers in mental health, Children's Home, Methodist Hospital that provides the services, and others, so that we could work to develop a system locally. And out of that came the residency at Methodist. The mental health court was something we promoted. Very significant is the crisis center that we have here, whose whole purpose is to keep people out of hospital emergency rooms, out of jail, and into treatment, which again should be a model that every city in the state has. And it had long been my dream to cause that to happen, but we have it here, and it's a very precious thing, but every year we have to fight to keep it. And what could make more common sense than to have that kind of a service available?
We're going to talk about common sense at the end of the show.
Don't.
Or maybe lack of common sense.
Yeah,
but we mentioned agriculture. There's a group that was called, I believe it was called the Central Six, and can you describe the Central Six with regard to the confinement operations?
Sure. The Central Six concept was an excellent effort. It was called Central Six because there were 6 legislators came together, essentially from Central Illinois. It came out of meetings that we had when Congressman Ray LaHood would convene and have area legislators come in. And there was big concern about the arrival of the large livestock confinement operations, concern whether or not Illinois had adequate regulation. So the Central Six, it was 6 legislators, 3 Democrats, 3 Republicans, 4 from the House, 2 from the Senate. It was Senator Shadid, Senator Hawkinson, Representative Leach, Representative Sloan, Representative Smith, and myself. And we started working on the basic framework to form some regulations that would protect our environment, that would work with the industry, make sure we could keep a strong livestock industry because we wanted to do that, but yet would address some concerns. So we worked on legislation. That bill eventually, and a lot of people had input, producers and anyone had opportunities. That bill was actually signed at the Heart of Illinois Fair by Governor Ryan, and we were all there for that signing, and that brought about some stability in the livestock industry in the state of Illinois. It's, agriculture is the #1 industry in the state of Illinois. We want to keep it that way. With the arrival of the concept of biofuels, when we make ethanol, we actually have a byproduct called distiller's grain, and that's a livestock feed. So we actually need the livestock industry to be able to take advantage or use, or it makes a ready resource for the livestock industry, the byproduct from ethanol plants. And so the Central Six, bipartisan, worked on that, and it's been a good bill. It's worked, and it was a pleasure to work on that.
There's some other highlights that I want to get to, but you mentioned the Central Six, and the two of you were part of that. It was Democrats, Republicans, it was House, Senate. So I just want to take a moment to talk about cooperation, because in covering politics for as long as I have, I've always witnessed Central Illinois being, you have differences, Democrats and Republicans, have differences in principle, but you seem to communicate, you seem to reach out for the common good. What's happening in Springfield that doesn't work down there?
Well, I think, first of all, I think we're all friends. I think even though we have very different political views, I would say David Kaler, Jahan Gordon, the others of us, Chuck Weaver, we're all friends. And so we can work and work to achieve a community agenda. For example, the legal structure required to have the museum never would have happened without bipartisan support here. The historic tax credits that were just renewed recently but were initiated about 4 or 5 years ago would never have happened without Jahan Gordon, the Black Caucus, working on that side of the aisle, and with those of us on the Republican side, and then in the Senate. So these issues of great local importance have always been focused on a bipartisan basis by each of us, and it's a huge advantage. For one reason, among one of us, there's going to be the party of the governor. The other point is, as Don said, we're in each caucus, and that's huge.
Do you share that analysis that you're friends first here?
Right, I do. Friends, and we respect each other. And we look at it as more of a region on a lot of these issues, and we kind of rise and fall together. And the more we can help each other, the better it is. The stronger we are for the region. There'll be some other things probably come up in our discussion. But yes, I agree with what Dave just said.
And it doesn't seem to cross over when it's time to solve the big statewide issues down in Springfield.
No, I think the problem there is ever since Governor Blagojevich and the power struggle that Blagojevich and the Speaker had consumed all the oxygen in Springfield, and so there really hasn't been what I would call governance since. It's been first the power struggle between the Speaker and Blagojevich. Now it's the power struggle between Governor Rauner and the Speaker. And so those power struggles, very tragically and sadly, are put above the interests of governance for the state of Illinois and its citizens. I mean, the first thing we have an obligation to do is get a budget. And that should be something that our issues can be set aside, not compromised, not ignored, but set aside in order to get a budget and move on. But sadly, that has not happened since Blagojevich, and it's destroyed the state, I would say.
And do you have a sense of frustration, especially in your latter years of service?
Certainly, it's like I hate to leave at a time when the state is in the current fiscal situation. I'd hoped to have had budgets for the last 2 years. I'd hoped we were working down the debt. And Governor Rauner came in with some action plans, some things that needed to be addressed. We have to deal with the pension issue, one of the things he's wanted to do. We have to deal with some business issues like workers' comp reform. That hasn't happened. Those are important too. Part of the problem is revenue, and the governor's approach is let's create more private sector jobs to generate that revenue to fund the budget, and I agree with that. So yes, we locally we can agree on a lot of issues. I hope that we can continue to look at it in the big picture. We need a budget.
See, H, right now we've got almost 11 billion in unpaid bills. The spending right now is at a rate of about 38 billion. Revenue will be about 32 billion. So while all this is going on and the state's burning up, lowest credit rate in the United States, highest pension obligation in the United States, while all these fires are occurring, those are the power struggles seem to be more important than having us get together and begin to attack those problems.
And we don't have a solution to that, but we have less than 5 minutes, believe it or not. So I wanted economic benefit to Galesburg, grade separation with the railroad at Burlington Northern.
We've been able to work on getting grade separations in Galesburg. First, it's really 4 when you had the first one with the first capital bill between Galesburg and Abington, an overpass. Then 3 within Galesburg, a West Main overpass, a North Seminary, North Kellogg overpass over the railroad, and an East Main underpass that is now construction is beginning. That positions the Galesburg rail yard, which is the second largest rail yard in Burlington Northern system, to be really positioned for more expansion. And with the 4 grade separations, that's really 8 years of construction jobs. It will improve the ease of moving about town by the motoring public, improve public safety response, and then position that yard. So it's not just the grade separations. There was additional storage tracks, additional third main line across East Main. I want to point out that was a bipartisan effort. A lot of people deserve credit, and it was at local, state, and federal level getting the funding for that. The whole package is about $88 million.
And in Peoria, one of your big successes was taking what had been the Zeller Zone Center and turning it into what we now call
the North
ICC
Campus.
Yeah.
Yes, and before that, under Governor Ryan, we secured $18 million to build out the East Campus, the diesel technology program, the new IT building, career center, a whole series of other projects there that were very, very important, and very important for another reason, and that is because we worked together to start the Fast Start program, first in Midland, where kids could go from their junior year now to ICC and still participate in school activities. So one of the cornerstones of education reform, in my opinion, is to have a very engaged and active community college system where it's working with kids who have aptitude and ambition to make a future for themselves without having to wait until they've graduated.
We can talk for the next couple of hours about what you've done for Central Illinois as legislators, and I thank you for your service. But we have just a moment left. What's next for Don Moffitt?
I want to stay involved in public policy, do anything I can to help any of the legislators, especially the person that's succeeding me. I hope that these things will continue. The interest-free loan, well, there's one program that's on the books, hasn't been funded, and that's an interest-free loan to build, rehab, remodel fire stations around the state. It's there, it's law, we just need to fund it. That's a job creator and would improve public safety.
And you have a job.
I do.
You didn't know you were going to have a job, but you
Not
do.
at the time I left. Governor has appointed me as Assistant Director of Agriculture. I'm honored to do that. I emphasize I'm speaking as Don Moffitt, retired legislator today.
And for you, David Leach, what's next?
Probably visit grandchildren. I don't have any defined position to fill, or I'm always available for advice. I'm very good at giving advice as long as I don't have to be accountable for it.
Please meet consultant David Leach. And with that, I'll say thank you very much to David Leach. 28 years of service in the Illinois House, 1 year of service in the Illinois Senate. Thank you so much for joining us on At Issue.
Thank you, H.
And also say thank you to Don Moffitt, 24 years of service in the Illinois House. We appreciate your service as well.
Thank you, H. Honored to serve. If I had it to do over, I'd do it all over again.
And please join us next week on At Issue when we're going to be talking about another transition. This one is in leadership at the Peoria chapter of the NAACP. After more than 2 decades, Don Jackson he's still going to be involved, but he's no longer going to be president of the chapter. He's going to make room for Marvin Hightower. Both gentlemen will be on At Issue next time. Please join us then.